What's up, Mark? I'm so glad you're here today. Welcome to the Low Carb Hustle podcast.
Thanks very much for having me on, Nate.
Yes, sir. So, uh, beyond just having a very, very sexy accent, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background for anyone who's maybe not familiar with you?
Okay, so my name is Mark. I'm living in Dublin, Ireland. I've been in the fitness space now for just over 30 years. I've done it all. I've worked in gyms. I started my online business there about 6, maybe 7 years ago. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much how I got into the fitness industry. My background, what got me to here was I grew up having a huge eating disorder. I always battled with eating disorders all my life. So, like I'd say around 13 or 14 years of age is when it started for me. Um, Back in school, I would have been bullied over how I looked. I was one of those obese kids that was always picked last on sports teams. It would be very, very difficult for me picking up women. I just didn't have the confidence. And I just looked into getting into sports and getting fit as much as possible. And that's what led me down the fitness route. I wanted to get into sports. I wanted to change the way I look. And that's pretty much how it all started for me.
Gotcha. Okay. Really interesting. I want to dive into a little bit of that, but what sport in particular were you attracted to? Did you get into first?
So that I would have been a big rugby player. I don't know if you guys know the rugby, but I used to look like some rugby. I used to like soccer. They would have been my two main things because I love the physical kind of aspect when it comes to like sports. Anything that's physical, that's my kind of thing. So yeah, soccer and rugby were my two biggest sports. I was never a good runner. Never a good sprinter. I was never good at high jump or long jump or anything like that, or swimming.
Gotcha. But rugby and soccer. Cool.
Mm.
So can you just like go back a little bit and break down a little bit for me what was going on like when you were dealing with your eating disorder? Because you mentioned you had like you were working through anorexia.
Hmm.
Like what triggered that in you at 13, 14 years old? Obviously, kids are mean. Kids are the worst that like at that age. And I know that
Mm.
we talk to a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of women, honestly, who have dealt with anorexia or bulimia in their life. What made that something that you moved towards as a 14-year-old?
I kind of fell into it by accident, to be honest. I never wanted. I never knew anything about anorexia. I never knew anything about like food restriction, calorie deficits. I never knew any of that. I just wanted to get fit and I just wanted to be thin, no matter what. I just wanted to be skinny and I was gonna do whatever it takes to get there. So it just started off with just easy, just doing sports, getting involved in like training, playing games with other kids. And then it evolved after about a year later, I start looking at like magazines. I start looking at like people getting in shape, picking up dumbbells, picking up weights. So I started off doing some bodyweight exercises in my room. I used to do like press ups, pull ups, ab crunches, and I would do them every single day. And then my mother turned around and said to me, why don't you not join the gym? Why don't you not just join a gym? And I never even thought about it. I just said, yeah, I'll go up tomorrow and I'll ask them, can I join? Because at that time I would have been around 15 or 16. So I thought I wouldn't have never got in, but I got in, um, and it just took over my life, like to the point where my exams got pushed to the side. Every single day I just thought about getting in shape, um, restricting my food, and that's pretty much how it all started. So I would have just going into the gym. I would have done about 30 minutes on cardio, about 30 minutes on weight training, and then as the months went on, I would just increase it. I would increase the time in the gym, so about 40 minutes cardio, to the point where I was in the gym for New Year. I'd say at the later end, when it got really, really bad, I was probably in the gym nearly 3 hours a day.
Wow. Okay. So like I feel like I talked to a lot of people on the show about how like fitness was this outlet for them and then brought a lot of healthy habits in. It sounds like sports and fitness combined like kind of accelerated the progress of like an eating disorder and made it like
Oh yeah.
more top of mind for you. So
Hmm.
was it
And not only that, but just made me feel good.
Which thing?
like going and just exercising.
Okay.
It felt like during that time I was going through an awful lot of pain because of the bullying, and I felt like I was just on my own, and I had nobody around me supporting me, and my only trying to get rid of all that, and my defense mechanism was just going into the gym every single day. I felt when I'm in the gym, that's when I was very, very comfortable. I
Okay.
just don't think anybody understood me apart from the gym, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people probably listen to this will resonate with that. Um, but you feel like you were going to the gym, you're working out, like top end 3 hours a day, doing an hour of cardio, more weights. And then when you were finished, you didn't have the mentality of like, I need to refuel, I need to build my muscle. Your thought was always, I need to get smaller, skinnier, I need to become
Mm.
less. Is that like the track that was playing in your, like the back of your mind?
Yeah, exactly. So when it came to the food, I wasn't really tracking calories. I just saw food as food. So even if it was sugar, and even if it was processed rubbish, I just saw food as food, and I was chasing basically a losing battle from the very, very beginning. So I'll give you an example how it worked out. So at the very, very beginning, I would have done what everybody else does when they do a calorie deficit. They would have started off with their food probably at maintenance, and then every week they would have took food off every week or every month or whatever. So that's what I did. I just kept on lowering my food every week because I was
And
looking
you
at
were and you were
magazines and telling,
tracking this at the same time. You were like tracking your
yeah,
calories. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so I was just bringing. So I wasn't measuring anything on scales. I was just basically just taking the food off every week. So like if I had like say 100 grams of salmon, I would have just took about 10 grams. I would have just chopped off 10 grams off the salmon. Just things like that, stupid stuff. So and same with if I had like a Mars bar, I would take probably about a quarter off it. So that's how I knew, okay, if I just take a quarter off it, I'm eating less on a weekly basis. If I'm having like a meal, my mother made me a meal. Let's say I had two chicken breasts. I would probably cut half a chicken breast and make it one and a half. And then I would do that then. And then I would do that consistently, probably once every 2 weeks. But I would still make sure that my training was at least my main priority. And what I was focusing on too much was the scales. So if I wasn't dropping the weight down, so if I didn't drop a pound down, like let's say I was in a deficit, I done my training and I looked at the scales and I was like, okay, nothing moved. I would make sure that I'm gonna punish myself even harder the next day in the gym.
Okay. And then, so at your lowest, how many calories are you getting on a daily basis?
At my lowest, I was only eating a half a Mars bar a day. So I have no
Whoa.
idea what that is, but yeah, it would have been about maybe
Maybe 90 calories, 100 calories. Jeez.
yeah, max. That was when it got to the extreme because I got away with this for years. I got away with this for about 2 years, hiding this from my parents. And the reason why I got away with it because I was just wearing a lot of clothing. That's why I still to this day I wear a lot of clothing because I still have that in the back of my mind. I can't get rid of it. But I used to just wear so many clothes and just try and hide and put my hood up. But when it got to the extreme was when I got down to the lowest weight I got down to was around 4 stone. I have no idea what that is in pounds. I think that's around maybe 50 pounds, maybe less. I was really, really light. And
56
it wasn't
pounds.
un-
Holy cow.
and it wasn't until we went on holidays. I went on a family holiday. And back then we didn't have remote controls to switch the TV. So I remember one day I got up out of my bed, I went up to switch the channel on the TV and I just completely fainted. I was gone, just completely fainted. There was nothing left. There was nothing left in my body. I couldn't. There was no more energy. I was just literally running on fumes. So that's when my body was just breaking down,
Oh my gosh.
literally breaking down. And when I look back at it now, I'm very, very lucky to be alive.
Yeah,
Very,
no
very
kidding.
lucky.
For eating only half a Mars bar per day. What were you when you were at
And
your
that's and
heaviest?
that's and sorry, that's a half a Mars bar a day plus 3 hours training 7 times a week.
Sheesh. And then did you still feel like that wasn't enough? Like you weren't doing enough? You could do more?
Every time I looked in the mirror, I was always doing this to my stomach. I
Like
can pinch
grabbing your
fat there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Even at 56 pounds. And how tall are you?
Mm. I'm 5'3".
5'3", 56. Oh my gosh, Mark, that's crazy. Um,
Yeah.
so what was the turning point for you? You said you went on vacation, you fainted. I'm sure that was probably your parents kind of saw that at that point. What happened next?
The turning point was when I fainted. Then they brought me to the hospital. So this was when we were in Spain, and we had 2 days left, and then we had to go home. But the doctors were saying like, listen, he has to stay here. We can't bring him home. He needs to stay here. So I stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And the treatment was, they were just saying like, listen, we have to feed you. We have to get you on the right track. That's that's easier said than done. You're talking to someone that's been in a restriction, in a calorie deficit. Like, I was literally terrified of food at the stage, terrified. So if you
How
put
old were
any
you?
food in front of me at this stage, I would have been around maybe 16, 17.
Okay.
Yeah, I think of 16. So at this stage, I would have been terrified, absolutely terrified, if you put food in front of me. And when they did, they were feeding me every 2 hours. I used to just lie and say, "Yep, I ate it," but I used to just put it in the toilet or just throw it outside the window.
Wow. So like moving forward, go, or actually how heavy were you when you're at your heaviest?
When I was a child,
Yeah, yeah. Like when you started
uh,
when you kicked off the eating disorder and you felt like
okay, so I maybe around 10 stone, but I would have been carrying a lot of weight, a lot of body fat. So I
okay,
was walking around. I would have been like a chubby child. My parents would have always said to me, "It's just puppy fat. You'll grow out of it." But I didn't see it that way.
gotcha. So just for reference, 10 stone is about 140 pounds. So if anyone
Mm.
listening, wow. Okay. And if you look back at yourself in that time, would you like with like kind of fresh eyes and from a healthy perspective now, would you look at yourself and say you were carrying a lot of extra weight, or do you feel like that was something that was in your head that was like you were being over critical of yourself, super harsh, and like you didn't actually have a bunch of fat?
It's hard to say because I was at that age, and I
Yeah.
don't know whether it was I was just overthinking things or whether I was obese. But when I think about it and I look back at it, and I look at what my parents used to feed me, I really do believe it was just because I was just overweight.
Okay. Wow. All right. So talk to me about kind of like the transformation then. Like, what did it take, and when did you go from being like I need to like be skinny at all costs to being like having a more healthy relationship with food, being back on the right track? You've done bodybuilding shows. Like, what did it take to get you back into a positive mental space there?
Okay, so pretty much after we finished, when we came back after the hospital and we were on the right track, my parents didn't want me to go through that ever again.
Mm-hmm.
So around 17, 18 years of age, they wanted me to get into a rugby school. And
Okay.
the reason why they wanted to get me in there is because they wanted to teach me about how to lift weights, how to put on weight properly, and just pretty much discipline, and never actually go through that ever again because they were genuinely worried,
Totally.
which is understandable.
Yeah. You're in the hospital for three
So
weeks. That's crazy.
yeah, so
I can imagine that as a
so we
parent.
went. Oh, it's terrible, absolutely terrible.
Awful.
But yeah. So we went. I joined a rugby school. I was taught by some of the best trainers in Ireland at the time. They taught me how to lift weights, how to taught me about nutrition, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, macronutrients, micronutrients, all that kind of stuff. And everything went really, really well. I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed putting on mass, but it got to the extreme. These people were feeding me too much food. They weren't focusing on putting on the weight the right way. It was just like bang, 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 bang from the very, very beginning. This is what you're going to be eating. This is what you're going to be eating. This is what you're going to be eating. And a lot of it, I'd say about 65 to 70% of it was carbohydrate based, a lot of carbohydrates.
Because they want you to
So
put
I
on
did
size
that.
for like to be
Yeah,
able to handle
yeah.
hits and to be a better athlete.
Mhm.
And they're like, a little bit of body fat, no problem. We don't need you bulking and looking like a bodybuilder. We just want you larger.
Exactly, exactly. So I did that. I said, okay, I'll do that. And when I looked in the weight room, I was like, okay, great, this is great. I'm gonna be looked after by these trainers. We just focused on the big lifts, big compound lifts, squat, deadlifts, bench, all that kind of stuff. And I did that for 4 years, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the aggressive part.
Hmm.
Um, because when we used to go out on the field, we would be pumped up on adrenaline. Like they'd be giving us caffeine drinks, energy drinks, all this kind of stuff. So I love the aggression, but it literally took over my life. And then what I couldn't understand was around 17, 18 years of age, I went from someone that was relatively thin. I would have been around 9 or 10 stone, which is around 130, 140 pounds. When I finished playing rugby, I think it was around 23, 24, I ballooned up to nearly 300 pounds in body weight.
Whoa. Okay. So you went from being like 56 pounds to
So
being
I
up
was
to
I was
300
a, I was
pounds
a I was a large I was a yeah I was,
at 5'3".
yeah I was a large kid
So
playing playing rugby.
you've done everything. You've been on all sides of the spectrum, from bodybuilding to being
Hmm.
obese to being like significantly underweight and extremely unhealthy. Dude, okay. So and I know you coach people now and you've been in the fitness industry for 30 years. Like, how does this stuff that you've gone through with your own battles with obesity and anorexia, how does it inform how you coach people right now? Primarily you focus on women, right? You mostly coach women?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, when I talk to somebody, I can pretty much pick up straight away what they're going through because I have been on both sides of
Mm-hmm.
the spectrum. I've done the calorie deficits. I've also been in a calorie surplus. I know what it takes. So when I hear people's stories, I can usually pick it up straight away. I know what the problem is. And I think what's going on at the moment, especially at the moment, there's an awful lot of people out there that are really struggling with their health. Obesity is going through the roof, diabetes is going through the roof, and too many people are just focusing on weight loss. They just want to get in shape. They're focusing on calories. And this is where I find the system is wrong. This is where I find that our health system is wrong. This is where I feel the medical system is wrong. And this is where I feel that the fitness system is wrong. Because again, this is what I did, but it never got to the root cause of the problem. I was one of those people that, okay, I could get in shape easily get in a calorie deficit. But the problem is I just couldn't sustain it. I couldn't stay there. So when I did drop my food down too low, I would come out of it very, very quickly. I would end up binging, massively binging, and nobody could tell me the reason why. And this is when eventually it led me into this path of keto carnivore. But I did a bodybuilding competition there back in November last year, and I chose to do it this way, just following a carnivore approach. Because again, I know how to get in shape. I know how to do the calorie deficits. But again, I was struggling big time. So I said, I'm not going to do that this time. When I did carnivore this time, I was on a very, very high fat diet. Very, very high fat diet. I remember getting on stage with people that were like literally 3% body fat. That were literally running on fumes. Fumes. They wouldn't even have any like fat fish oil capsules in their diet. They would completely remove fat out of their diet completely. Their hormones would have been tanked, destroyed. They would have been just messed up, completely messed up. Here's the thing. When that show was over, these people were rushing towards McDonald's. They were having donuts. They were having cakes. They were having biscuits, sweets, all that kind of stuff. I was completely fine. Completely fine. And this is what I see nowadays with people when I'm taking people on, that they went through the exact same issues I had. And they're literally destroying their leptin and ghrelin hormones, and they don't actually realize it.
Wow. So going back through that, do you feel like the keto and carnivore approach allowed you to address some of the underlying issues? You mentioned that, but you didn't really get into it. Can you kind of unpack, like, because you said that you never really got to like the core of the issue with through like calorie deprivation, through doing like the rugby sort of diet when you ballooned up to 300 pounds. What was the root cause and how did you fix it?
The root cause of it was I had a food addiction. I had a sugar addiction. That was the main issue. The main issue was no matter what diet I had, I was always eating carbohydrates foods, always. So even though I was eating extremely healthy, like I was eating oats, I was eating fruits, I was eating complex carbohydrates like sweet potato, rice, I always struggled with my hunger. I never had that true satiety feeling when it came to my food. And that's what I had to address. I had to address, why do I have a sugar addiction? Why do I struggle with my hunger? And unless I address that issue, then I just don't see anything getting fixed in the near future.
And you feel like the keto and carnivore approach has allowed you to break ties with that sugar addiction and actually eat foods that satiate you?
Exactly, yeah, because when we look at keto and carnivore, primarily you're going to remove carbohydrates out of your diet.
Right.
Now, a lot of people will think that carbohydrates are an essential macronutrient, but they're far from an essential macronutrient. Your body doesn't need any carbohydrates whatsoever. I'll hear a lot of people will tell me that, well, hang on a second, your body needs glucose, your brain needs glucose. Yes, your brain needs carbohydrates, your brain needs glucose, but your body can produce all this itself. And you can also get glucose from gluconeogenesis. So when it comes to carbohydrates, we don't need any carbohydrates whatsoever. And also, I believe chronic inflammation is a massive, massive problem in today's world. And I also believe insulin resistance is a major problem in this world also. And I feel that where I was struggling, I was insulin resistant, and nobody could tell me why.
Do you think that, like, if we were to go back like 200 years or something like that, before all these processed foods and like sugar became, like, cause like if you look back in like the like Roman Egyptian times, sugar was this like very, very expensive commodity that only the ultra wealthy could really afford.
Mm.
Do you think that, like,
Mm.
if you were to go back in time like that, we would not need to necessarily restrict carbohydrates so much, and because of the lack of the highly processed foods and the like the candies and the sugars and things that actually create that sugar addiction? Or do you feel like keto carnivore is like, I'm kind of wondering, is like, do you feel like it's the best choice for right now, or do you think that's always been the right choice?
I think that when you look at 100 years ago, fruit was nowhere near as what it is right now. So when you look at a banana, say for example, like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, it definitely wasn't anywhere near as sweet as
Mm-hmm.
what it is now. You
True.
look at our fruit now, our fruit is extremely sweet. You only need to look in our supermarkets now. Every single bit of food you look at has sugar in it. Now you might look at it and say, okay, this food has no sugar in it. If I just pick up this, it has no sugar. But people don't understand. There's around 75 hidden sugars in our foods in today's world. Like there's dextrose, there's so many. There's so many. Like I don't know in your country, but in my country, if you pick up a packet of meat in a supermarket, it has dextrose in it. A
Hmm.
lot of sugar. So this is why I always say to people, you need to go and buy your food in the butchers. But yeah, when you look at the difference of 100 years ago, I'm not saying that carnivore and keto is probably be the best approach, if say 100 years ago, but I do definitely feel it's the best approach right now.
It's the way we can
I
mitigate the
definitely think,
damage and like stay away from the
yeah,
foods that are more highly toxic, ultra processed, high in sugar, and then have those secret sugars that are hidden in like date solids or maltodextrin
hmm
and things
and
like that.
yeah, and I didn't actually realize I had a food addiction or a sugar addiction until I actually removed these foods out of my diet. Like I remember about a year ago, or no, it wasn't about a year ago, about 2 years. I'm doing carnivore nearly 4 years now. And I remember 2 years ago, I said, well, I'll try something. Now I used to be hooked on soda drinks, hooked on them. I used to drink like nearly 3 of them a day. And I said, right, I'm going to try one. I'm going to try one. This is around Christmas time. I'm just going to try one. I'd say within 30 minutes, I could feel like my aggression was going through the roof. I felt
Really?
like my mental health, oh, unbelievable.
Wow.
My mental health dropped. I could feel how powerful the sugar was on my body. I felt like, I remember going out for a walk and all I wanted to do, I just wanted to start a fight.
Wow.
I could feel it straight away. And it wasn't just that. I used to be hooked on chocolate. The taste of chocolate was completely different. I can't explain it, but it just tasted different. It tasted sweet, and I didn't like the taste of it at all.
Hmm. Okay. So ridding your body of the sugar cravings and addictions, ridding your body of some of that bacteria that is sending signals to our brain to eat more sugar, changed the
Mm.
way your taste buds worked as well.
Yeah, because when you look at people who are struggling with weight, a lot of people will always say when they go in a calorie deficit, the one thing they notice is hunger. That's why the likes of Ozempic now is very, very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Ozempic now is extremely popular now because it shuts off that hunger hormone.
Mm-hmm.
So people are looking at it and saying, well, I have these issues with food. I just cannot control what I put into my mouth. But people don't understand that it's this is not down to calories. This is down to your hormones. Your leptin levels are out of whack and your insulin levels are out of whack. So if you're in a situation where you're struggling with your food, you need to be in a situation to say, okay, what's causing the most damage? What's causing the most damage for those insulin levels to be chronically elevated? And it's going to come from processed food. It's going to come from carbohydrates. Whereas if we increase the food, that's going to keep our leptin levels really, really high, and it's going to keep us fuller on a regular basis, then you can maintain weight loss for a long period of time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So attacking it more from like a hormonal perspective rather than just the macronutrients, just the tracking perspective.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
tell people this all the time. It's like the human body is not a math equation. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
1 + 1 = 2. It's a
Mm-hmm.
chemical laboratory, and there's so much going on behind the
Exactly.
scenes. And I feel like I have to
Mm-hmm.
reiterate this a lot of times to people who are like, I didn't lose any weight last week. I was in a deficit all week. Or I did a fast or whatever. I'm like, well, it doesn't just work in a linear fashion. You don't
Mm-hmm.
put one input in. You don't put one salad in and end up with with abs. You don't do one
Mm-hmm.
workout and end up with biceps. Like it
Mm-hmm.
takes a minute for your body to normalize, especially when your hormones have started being all out of whack. You have insulin resistance. You need to break some of these cycles and the addictions. So talk to me, Mark, a little bit about the mindset piece behind this, because shifting from being 100% addicted to sugar, having like mindset issues around food, being scared of food. What do you help people with when it comes to reestablishing healthy patterns, adopting more of a carnivore or keto lifestyle? Because it's not as simple as just like pick up a steak and that the rest of your life is going to be good, right? You probably have to deal with a lot of those things that have just the underlying currents. Like what you said early on in the podcast was you still wear a lot of clothes because you have that subconscious like voice in the back of your head. How do you work with people to make that more of a healthy voice rather than being something that is like always detrimental, always poking at them, telling them they're not good enough, they're too fat, etc.
Well, the first thing you need to do is you have to get them the belief, and they have to know. You have to give you a reason why they want to do this. If someone comes on with me and says to me, "Mark, I want to lose weight," I'll always ask why. But like, why do you want to lose weight? Like, give me. I want to know that deeper why. But then once we find out the real reason, what we'll do is if someone comes to me with a huge problem with food and has a massive carb addiction, I'm not just going to jump in and say, listen, okay, you're going to be eating meat for the rest of your life. You're going to be eating like keto for the rest of your life. No, I'm going to do it in phases. First phase, I'm going to eliminate the carbohydrates. I'm going to eliminate the grains. Second phase, probably if they still have issues with gut issues, the leaky gut or stuff like that, maybe I'll remove the vegetables. So it's going to be like a transition. It's going to be like a phase. We're not going to be focusing on, okay, we're going to lose as much weight as possible so you can enjoy your holidays in 2 months' time.
Mm-hmm.
No, I want to know what we can do in 1 year's time, because people need to understand that this is not just a problem where we just lose weight. You shouldn't be in a situation where you're losing weight every single year. You should be getting better every single year. Especially women. Women are too focused on cardio, trying to lose weight, but they don't understand the importance of weight training, and especially strength training, especially around their cycle, fertility issues, all that kind of stuff. Strength training is, in my opinion, more important than doing too much cardio in the gym, because this is what leads to too much stress. Cortisol goes straight to the roof. Your sleep gets disrupted. Like digestive issues get disrupted. There's so much nuance to this than
Especially
just being in a
females.
calorie deficit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Because like men are linear, right? We go through puberty and basically the rest of our lives is just like the same. Women, it's like they go through puberty. Now they have like a monthly cycle, not to mention
Mm-hmm.
perimenopause, menopause, and
Mm-hmm.
postmenopause.
Yeah.
And like I'm learning a little bit about this right now, like the fact that women, the 1 week after their period are actually going to be stronger in the gym and be able to like push a little bit more, have a little more resilience, and then they need to dial it back the week before their period. And like there's so much nuance here that I think people like we've always just thought of women as smaller men, And that has been backfiring on us, and we're creating a generation of women with cortisol issues and inflammation issues and
Hmm.
fertility issues,
Mm.
and not to mention some of the hormones you mentioned earlier, the cortisol, the ghrelin, the leptin. So yeah, you're doing good work, man.
Yeah, I mean, chronic stress is such a big thing, and I don't think it's been talked about enough, in my opinion.
I agree.
Um, and this is what really frustrates me about the fitness industry at the moment is because maybe you'll see somebody that works in the industry that has this unbelievable lifestyle online coaching, and they're able to eat processed food and they're able to go to the gym as many times as they like. You need to consider people as they get older. They've got families, they've got a lifestyle, they've got work schedules, they've got so much going on in their life. They cannot do this shit. So you have to find the right balance and say, well, listen, this is not going to work for you. This calorie deficit is not going to work for you. If you keep on doing this every single year, I can tell you right now, your body's not going to change. You're going to be basically pissing up against the wind unless you change something. You need to find out what works for your body. You need to work towards like what we've been talking about. Look at your hormones. Address the hormone issue first, because if you address the hormone issue first, weight loss for you is going to be so much easier, and getting in shape is going to be so much easier as well. This goes for both men and women.
For sure. But I think that like a lot of times we don't address the underlying issues. We like end up trying to white knuckle it or bang our head against a wall, instead of working with
Mm.
our body. And if I hear another 22-year-old fitness coach tell me that we have the same 24 hours in the day,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna lose
crazy,
my goddamn
crazy.
mind.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah. It's honestly, and I don't know if you see my Instagram, but this is the one thing I'm talking about every day. Like, these fitness influencers are making a fortune of just selling rubbish, and it really, really frustrates me, because the reason why it frustrates me is because when they take these people on and then they don't get the results that they wanted, then the next coach that comes in, like say me, automatically in their head they're thinking that this person's just another coach. This person's just another fitness influencer. And it's trying to get back to the root and say, listen, well, the reason why you went wrong here is because this, and this. But it's trying to get past all that first, because they're looking at you and they're saying, well, I've heard all this before. What makes you any different?
mhm.
And it's you're kind of fighting a losing battle at the very, very beginning.
Yeah, it's tough. So Mark, by the way, if you want to check Mark out on Instagram, you go to Fitness Beyond Time 01, and that's his Instagram. You also have a giveaway, 5 steps to reclaim your energy and your health with keto carnivore. I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's just fitnessbeyondtime.com or fitnessbeyondtime01.com. What's the
Yeah, and
significance
I
of
would
zero one?
so 0 1 is just basically this is the first and last time I'm ever going to go and do a diet. That's why I just decided to come up with the name and put a 0 1 at the end of it.
All right, Mark, I got one more question that I kind of want to like wrap this up, but if you could go back in time and talk to your 13-year-old self, what would you say? What wisdom could you impart to him at that time that you feel like could help him move beyond some of those battles you went through with first anorexia and then obesity? What would you say to yourself at that point?
Oh, there'd be so much. I mean, we should never have regrets in life. That's We should never have we have, but I feel I do. I feel like I shouldn't be here. I feel like I've escaped death twice, and I'm so grateful that I am still here. So if I was to look back, and if I was to change anything, I probably would just listen to the right people instead of listen to the wrong people.
Who
And
would
the
have been the
wrong
right
people
people
would
in
have been
that
like
at
the
that point in your life?
family. Listen to more family. At that time I wasn't listening to family. I was just listening to people, friends, bullies, um, people in magazines, just letting it all get into my head, like completely just let get into my head. Because back then I would have done well. I would have done well in school if I just had listened to my parents. Um, parents just want the best from you, and I feel for that 4 or 5 years, I pushed my family to the side massively, and that's probably one of the biggest regrets I have,
Wow.
is not taking on the advice my mother and father gave me back then, because I remember the advice as if it was yesterday. They were saying, like, no matter what you look like, we'll still love you. No matter what we'll always love you, no matter what you look like. And I should have listened to that, but I didn't. I just wanted to be thin. And I'm hoping that my message gets spreads across, because I know a lot of people out there are going through the same issues that I went through. They're going through the mental health issues, they're going through the weight issues, they're going through all the issues, and they feel like there's no support out there. There is support out there. You just need to look and you need to listen to people. And we're not saying that, listen, you need to just straight away go by what they say, but ask more questions. Ask more questions to the people that are putting you in this stress environment, that are saying to you, okay, you need to do a calorie deficit. People are saying to you, look, hey, listen, if you want to get healthy, you can get healthy from something out of a bottle. Guys, you can't get healthy from something out of a bottle. So you should be asking more questions about this. And this is the reason why I came on today, to get this message spread across, because I think it's very, very important.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I know that's super powerful. It's going to impact a lot of people. Before we go, what's anything you want to leave us with?
No, I just would like to say thanks very much to you for having me on. I know you're probably quite busy, so yeah, thanks very much for having me on, and hopefully we can do it again in the near future.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks very much, buddy.